Welcome to SOCRadar's AI-powered podcast, SOCRadar's Annual Dark Web Report 2024.
Welcome in, everybody, to our deep dives into SOCRadar's 2024 Dark Web Report. I know you're all out there, keeping the digital world safe. So we've gone through this report and pulled out some really key insights to help you refine your cybersecurity strategies. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine sitting down at your desk, ready to tackle the day's cyber threats. But someone's already beaten you to it. They've logged into your company's systems using stolen credentials they picked up for, a mere $10 on the dark web. This actually happened recently in the Snowflake incident. So to help us unpack what this means for all of us and what else is brewing in the cybercrime underground, let's bring in our expert.
Thanks for having me. It's a chilling reminder of how exposed we are. But what I found particularly striking in this report is the sheer scale of the dark web's activity. For example, they found that information, public administration, and retail were the top 3 targeted industries.
Those sectors don't seem immediately connected. What makes them so attractive to cybercriminals?
Well, they all hold vast amounts of valuable data, if you think about it. Government agencies, online retailers, tech companies, they're swimming in personal information, financial records, intellectual property, and more. And this makes them prime targets for data breaches, extortion attempts, you name it.
So it's the data itself that's the real treasure here.
Yeah.
And the report did mention that millions of email and password combinations were exposed.
Absolutely. Over 1 million to be precise. And geographically speaking, the US, India, and the UK were right in the crosshairs. Not surprising given their digital footprint, of course. But the sheer volume of compromised data is alarming. What I thought was interesting, though, was the breakdown of activities on the dark web. Sharing actually took the lead at almost 45%, followed closely by selling at 40%, with hack announcements trailing behind at only 13%. So this kind of reinforces that the dark web isn't just a place for illicit activities, but it's a dynamic marketplace, driven by supply and demand.
It's almost like a twisted version of eBay for cyber criminals. Speaking of supply and demand, let's talk about the cost of doing business in this underground world. The report highlights prices for various malware tools and services. Exploits, for example, averaged $5,345. Loaders, which are used to inject malicious code into legitimate software, were going for $3,566. And then there are stealers, a type of malware designed to steal sensitive data, with subscription-based ones going for a relatively affordable $1,024. These prices seem almost reasonable. Does this mean cybercrime is becoming more accessible?
Well, that is a key takeaway here. While the cost of sophisticated attacks like those using zero-day exploits can be quite high, those can range anywhere from $100 to a staggering $200,000. The increasing availability of lower-priced tools and services definitely lowers that barrier to entry for less skilled attackers, basically. This democratization of cybercrime is a worrying trend.
So it's not just nation-states and sophisticated hacking groups that we need to worry about anymore.
Exactly. It's becoming a much more diverse landscape. And what I found fascinating is that even with all the technological advancements we've made, something as basic as email remains a key attack vector.
Really? I thought email security was pretty advanced by now.
It is, but the report found that mailing and spam services on the dark web averaged around $100, highlighting that continued reliance on email for phishing campaigns and malware distribution. So it's a good reminder that strong email security and employee awareness training are just as crucial as ever.
Back to basics then. But let's follow the money for a moment. Where does all this stolen data end up, and how is it monetized? The report delves into the financial side of things, revealing some interesting trends in the pricing of stolen credit cards.
That's right. It turns out that US and UK cards fetch the highest prices on the dark web, likely due to higher spending limits and perceived trustworthiness. But what's truly concerning is the ready availability of other sensitive personal information. Mothers made a name for $15 driver's licenses for $8, even social security numbers for a mere $6.
So for the price of a cup of coffee, someone can buy enough information to potentially steal your identity.
It's a chilling thought. And it underscores the need for robust identity theft protection measures, both at an individual and an organizational level.
Sounds like we're all walking around with targets on our backs in this digital world.
In a way, yes. And it's not just personal data that's being traded. Online accounts for financial services like Revolut, PayPal, and Wise are also up for grabs, averaging between $50 and $100. So this should be a wake-up call for companies to seriously assess the security of their online accounts and implement stronger authentication mechanisms.
Makes you wonder how secure your own accounts really are. The report also mentions a new player on the dark web marketplace, deepfakes. What are those and what kind of threat do they pose?
Deepfakes are essentially AI-generated images or videos that are incredibly realistic, very difficult to distinguish from authentic content. And what's alarming is they're now available on the dark web, costing between $50 and $200 per image. This opens up a whole new avenue for cybercrime, from sophisticated scams and disinformation campaigns to identity theft and blackmail.
Imagine a deepfake video of you authorizing a fraudulent transaction or spreading false information. It's a nightmare scenario. But let's move on to another chilling revelation from the report: Stealer logs. What are those exactly?
Stealer logs are essentially records of stolen data, passwords, credit card details, browsing history, you name it, captured by Stealer malware. And the report uncovered a staggering number of these logs, indicating the widespread use and effectiveness of these tools.
It seems no matter where we turn in the digital world, there's a threat lurking in the shadows.
That's why understanding these threats and having the right tools and strategies in place is so crucial. Let's delve deeper into some of the specific types of malware mentioned in the report, starting with Redline and Raccoon, two of the most prevalent Stealer families.
Great idea. Let's start with Redline. What makes it so effective?
Well, what's fascinating about Redline is its versatility. It's not just limited to stealing credentials. It can capture screenshots, log keystrokes, download additional malware, and even exfiltrate files. It's like a Swiss Army knife for cybercriminals.
So it gives attackers a complete picture of their victim's system and activities. That's terrifying. And what about Raccoon?
Raccoon is known for its ease of use and affordability. It's available as malware as a service, making it accessible even to low-skilled attackers. And it's effective at stealing data from a wide range of sources: browsers, email clients, cryptocurrency wallets, you name it.
It sounds like we're facing a perfect storm. Easy access to stolen data, affordable malware tools, and a constantly evolving threat landscape. No wonder ransomware attacks are on the rise.
You're absolutely right, and the report provides a detailed look at the current ransomware landscape. You know, which sectors are most vulnerable and which ransomware groups are leading the charge. Let's explore that next. The report paints a rather grim picture when it comes to ransomware. It seems that manufacturing, professional services, and information sectors are bearing the brunt of these attacks: 17.77%, 11.82%, and 6.71% respectively.
Why are these industries more susceptible to ransomware attacks?
Well, they often rely on complex supply chains and interconnected systems. This creates multiple points of entry for attackers and increases the potential damage if those systems are compromised. Plus, the data they hold, intellectual property, financial records, customer data, is highly valuable to cybercriminals.
So it's a double whammy: vulnerable systems and high-value data. The report also delves into the key players in the ransomware arena, highlighting Lockbit 3.0, Ransom Hub, and Play Ransomware as the most active groups. What can you tell us about their tactics and targets?
Well, Lockbit 3.0 operates as ransomware as a service, providing the tools and infrastructure for affiliates to carry out attacks. This allows them to scale their operations rapidly and target a wider range of victims. Their signature move is double extortion. They not only encrypt data, but also threaten to leak it if the ransom isn't paid, putting immense pressure on organizations to comply.
So they're adding public humiliation to the mix. What about Ransom Hub? What makes them stand out?
Ransom Hub is a relatively new player, but has quickly gained notoriety. While they claim to be a global group of hackers, their tactics and targets suggest a possible link to Russia. Interestingly, they've publicly stated they avoid attacking certain countries and nonprofit organizations.
Is that a twisted sense of ethics or just a way to avoid unwanted attention?
It's hard to say for sure, perhaps a bit of both, but it does make you wonder about their motivations and long-term goals.
Now let's talk about Play Ransomware. The report mentioned they primarily target Latin America, especially Brazil. Is there reason for this regional focus?
Latin America is experiencing rapid growth in its digital economy, but cybersecurity infrastructure and awareness haven't kept pace. This creates a fertile ground for ransomware groups like Play to exploit vulnerabilities and target businesses that may not have adequate defenses in place.
A reminder that cybercrime is a global issue and vulnerabilities can be exploited anywhere. The report also highlights a worrying trend. Even though ransomware attacks peaked in early 2024, the activity had remained constant throughout the year. Sounds like no rest for the weary cybersecurity professional.
Unfortunately, that's the reality we face. It's a constant arms race, and vigilance is key. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about what individuals and organizations can do to protect themselves in this increasingly dangerous digital landscape. What are some actionable steps they can take?
That's a great question. After hearing all this, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Where do we even begin?
Well, the good news is that knowledge is power. The more we understand the threats and the tactics being used, the better equipped we are to defend against them. And the report offers some valuable insights into practical steps we can take. First and foremost, strengthen your identity and access management practices. Implement multi-factor authentication wherever possible. Enforce strong password policies and regularly audit user accounts. These are basic but crucial steps.
So it's about adding those extra layers of security to make it harder for attackers to get in, even if they have stolen credentials.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of employee awareness training. Educate your workforce about phishing scams, social engineering tactics, and the importance of reporting suspicious activity. A well-informed employee can be your first line of defense against many of these threats.
Creating a culture of security where everyone understands their role in protecting sensitive information.
Precisely. And finally, consider investing in threat intelligence solutions like SOCRadar that provide visibility into the dark web. By monitoring underground forums and marketplaces, you can gain insights into emerging threats, identify leaked credentials, and proactively defend against attacks before they happen.
Like having eyes and ears in the enemy's camp, giving you a tactical advantage.
That's a great way to put it. SOCRadar offers a range of resources and services to help you stay ahead of the curve. Their ransomware intelligence module, for instance, provides detailed profiles of ransomware groups, their tactics, and their targets. This kind of intelligence can be invaluable in developing targeted mitigation strategies and strengthening your defenses.
So while the report paints a somewhat bleak picture of the cyber threat landscape, it also offers a glimmer of hope. By taking proactive steps, staying informed, and utilizing the right tools and resources, we can fight back and protect our digital lives.
Absolutely. It's a collective effort, and we all have a role to play in making the digital world a safer place. Now, let's dive a bit deeper into one of the most concerning trends we touched upon earlier: the rise of stealer logs and the massive amount of compromised credentials they represent.
Yes, that was truly alarming. What can our listeners do to protect themselves and their organizations from these digital pickpockets? Beyond using strong, unique passwords for every account, of course.
Strong passwords are a must, but there's more you can do. Be wary of suspicious emails and attachments, as stealer malware is often spread through phishing campaigns that trick users into downloading infected files. Educate your employees about these tactics and encourage them to think before they click.
So it's about being cautious and aware of the potential dangers lurking in our inboxes.
Exactly. Another important step is to ensure your operating system and software are up to date with the latest security patches. These patches often address vulnerabilities that stealers exploit to gain access to your systems. It's basic cyber hygiene, but it can make a big difference.
So those updates aren't just there to annoy us, they actually serve a purpose.
Absolutely. And consider using a reputable antivirus and anti-malware software solution. These tools can help detect and block stealer malware before it can wreak havoc on your systems.
It's like having a digital bodyguard constantly scanning for threats and keeping you safe.
A very apt analogy.
Yeah.
And finally, be mindful of the websites you visit and the information you share online. Stealers can lurk on compromised websites or even legitimate ones that have been injected with malicious code.
So it's about being vigilant and aware of our digital footprint. The internet can be a dangerous place if we're not careful.
It's true. But by understanding the threats and taking proactive steps to protect ourselves, we can navigate the digital world more safely and securely.
That's reassuring to hear. Now let's delve deeper into one specific type of stealer that stood out in the report Redline. What makes it so dangerous?
Redline is a fascinating example of how stealer malware has evolved. It's no longer just about stealing passwords and credit card numbers. Redline goes further, gathering system information, capturing screenshots, logging keystrokes, and even downloading and executing additional malware.
So it gives attackers a comprehensive view of their victim system and opens the door for further attacks. It's a nightmare scenario.
Precisely. And what makes Redline particularly dangerous is its accessibility. It's available as malware as a service, meaning anyone with a few $100s can purchase and deploy it.
So even low-skilled attackers can get their hands on sophisticated malware tools. That's a worrying trend.
It is indeed. And it underscores the importance of a layered security approach that combines technical safeguards with user education and threat intelligence. No single solution can protect against all threats, so having a multifaceted strategy is crucial.
It's about creating a web of protection that makes it difficult for attackers to penetrate. Speaking of sophisticated threats, let's circle back to the emergence of deepfakes on the dark web.
Ah, yes, deepfakes. They're certainly unsettling. And the fact that they are now being offered for sale on the dark web, costing between $50 and $200 per image, is a sign of their growing potential for malicious use.
Those prices seem surprisingly affordable for such a powerful technology.
They are, and as the technology advances and becomes even more accessible, we can expect to see deepfakes being used in a wider range of cybercrime activities.
Can you give us some examples of how deepfakes could be weaponized?
Imagine a deepfake video being used to spread disinformation about a company or to blackmail an individual. Or consider a deepfake audio recording being used to impersonate a CEO and authorize a fraudulent transaction. The possibilities are chilling.
It's like something out of a spy thriller. And the worst part is it's getting harder and harder to distinguish deepfakes from genuine content.
That's true. And that's why we need to be extra vigilant when it comes to digital media. Don't believe everything you see or hear online, especially if it seems too good to be true or raises red flags.
Trust but verify. We need to be more critical consumers of information in the digital age.
Absolutely. And this is where threat intelligence can play a vital role. By monitoring the dark web and tracking the development and distribution of deepfake technology, we can better understand the threats and develop countermeasures.
It's all about staying one step ahead of the bad guys. But how can we wrap our heads around all this? The report is packed with information, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed.
You're right. It's a lot to process. But the key is to focus on the actionable insights and develop a plan to address the most pressing threats to your organization. Let's break down the key takeaways and offer some practical advice on how to navigate this evolving threat landscape.
Welcome back, everybody, to our deep dive into SOCRadar's 2024 Dark Web Report. We've covered a lot of ground, from the economics of cybercrime to the rise of deepfakes and the constant threat of ransomware. It's a lot to process, but let's try to distill it down to the essentials. What are some key takeaways our listeners should really remember, and what steps can they take to, strengthen their defenses?
Yeah, you're right. It's a lot to digest. But I think the main takeaway here is this. While the cyber threat landscape is constantly evolving and becoming more complex, knowledge and proactive action are our strongest weapons. By understanding the tactics being used, implementing robust security measures, and staying informed, we can navigate the digital world with greater confidence.
So it's not about living in fear, but about being prepared and empowered. Let's recap those actionable steps we discussed earlier. What's the first line of defense?
Well, it all starts with strengthening your identity and access management practices. Implement multi-factor authentication wherever possible, enforce strong password policies, and make regular user account audits a routine practice. It's about making it as difficult as possible for attackers to gain unauthorized access, even if they've managed to get their hands on stolen credentials.
Multi-factor authentication is a must-have these days. It adds that extra layer of security that can make all the difference.
Absolutely. And don't forget the importance of basic cyber hygiene. Keep your operating system and software updated with the latest security patches. Be cautious about suspicious emails and attachments. And use a reputable antivirus and anti-malware software solution. These are simple but effective steps that can significantly reduce your risk.
Like building a digital fortress around your valuable data.
That's a great way to put it. And just as important as technical safeguards is user education. Train your employees to recognize phishing scams, social engineering tactics, and other common cyber threats. Encourage them to report any suspicious activity immediately. A well-informed workforce is one of your strongest assets.
It's about creating a culture of security where everyone understands the importance of protecting sensitive information.
Exactly. And finally, consider investing in threat intelligence solutions like SOCRadar that provide visibility into the dark web. By monitoring those underground forums and marketplaces, you can gain valuable insights into emerging threats, identify leaked credentials, and proactively defend against attacks before they happen.
Knowledge is power, and SOCRadar gives you that power by shedding light on the darkest corners of the cyber world. Their ransomware intelligence module, for example, can be a game changer.
Absolutely. It provides detailed profiles of ransomware groups, their tactics, and their targets. This kind of intelligence can be invaluable in developing targeted mitigation strategies.
So while the SOCRadar report reveals a somewhat daunting reality, it also equips us with the knowledge and tools to fight back.
Precisely. By being vigilant, informed, and proactive, we can take control of our cybersecurity posture and make the digital world a safer place.
Well said. A big thank you to our expert for guiding us through this deep dive into the dark web and sharing their invaluable insights.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, stay safe out there. Keep learning, keep adapting, and keep fighting the good fight. Until next time, keep diving deep.
Wake up, the cyber world is calling. Follow the clues of the cyber world.